Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm Josh Modell. One of the pleasures of putting this show together is that the guests often leave their promotional hats at home and just dig into conversations about life. And that's definitely what happened this week with Matty Matheson and Jennifer Castle. Now, Matty Matheson you'll surely recognize either as a superstar chef and restaurateur who appeared on a bunch of Vice shows way back when, or if not that, then as a star and consultant on the hit TV show The Bear, where he plays the sublimely ridiculous Neil Fak. Matheson has lived several lifetimes, building a reputation as a wild partier in his youth, which eventually led to a heart attack at just 29. That's touched on briefly in this conversation. But he's also authored a bunch of super down-to-earth cookbooks that are great, including the new Soups, Salads, Sandwiches. You can guess what that one covers. Now, Matheson's connection to singer-songwriter Jennifer Castle goes way, way back. They met working in Toronto restaurants and became good friends over the years. Castle sang at Matty's wedding, and she was a doula at the birth of his first child, a topic that comes up in this chat. Castle has been making music for the past 20 or so years, first under the name Castle Music, but more recently under her own name. Don't let the gentleness of her indie folk fool you. There's a lot that cuts deep in her songs. Now, speaking of those songs, one of the songs from her latest album, Camelot, was featured in Season 3 of The Bear, a great way for Matheson to help get the word out on the person he calls the greatest Canadian singer-songwriter ever. Check out a little bit of Blowing Kisses right here.
Choose to enjoy one's time by the water and let one's future flow out on and in a runner.
In this lovely conversation, Castle and Matheson talk about how music and food can both bring people together, but they get really excited talking about two other natural pursuits, childbirth and farming. Matheson co-owns a farm called Blue Goose that you'll hear a bit about. Matheson also talks a bit about his family and his current book tour, and Castle shows off a touching gift that Matheson gave her many years ago. Enjoy, it's a really good one.
Finally, we're alone.
We're alone. We are here. The sun is shining.
Where are you?
I'm just like in my office
In Toronto?
in Toronto.
I didn't even think you were in the city.
Well, I'm in the city. About 48 hours.
Have you been away?
Yeah, I just did about a month and a half kind of bouncing around with like the cookbook shit.
Yeah.
And then I was home for 2 days and then had to come to the city for 2 days and then go home.
Yeah. How did it go?
The book tour.
Yeah.
Well, Castle, it went well. Every day, wake up around 4:30, 5 a.m., go to the airport. Just a lovely kind of just getting to know my TSAs, going through checkpoints, sitting in the chairs, eating water, a tuna avocado maybe from, what's that place called? Juice? Joe and the Juice maybe. And every day I was at the airport in the morning and I would fly. Then I'd do the event. And then the next day I would just go to the airport again. And it's just like a smorgasbord of love and commitment. That's all there for you just to enjoy as you're waiting to fly to a different town.
Yeah. Do you wear slip-on shoes at this point?
No, because I have pre-check shit. So I don't have to take my shoes off usually.
Okay. There you are.
I just start clacking and clicking around on my heels,
Okay. Because I still take my shoes off, and I made the mistake of wearing lace-up boots last time I was at the store. And I was just like, really? I was that.
What are we doing? Yeah,
I was that person.
You got like Sorels on. You got big wool socks on.
There are knives in my boots, and I'm like, it's not for that.
It's for skinning animals. It's for skinning animals.
Yeah, like it's realer than that. Like, no. But yeah, no, I was watching you. I see you online and I was like, you've been very far and wide, but that looks cool. And it looks like the rooms were filled and people want to know about soups and salads and sandwiches, turns out. It's giving love. It's giving. When I was growing up, my mom used to have like days of the week, nothing scheduled, but Mondays were like soups and salads.
Yeah.
Then, Friday we'd go out to the mall. Saturday would be pasta. But I felt like this was like a bit of a nod to the more simple nights. But I don't think it's a simple cookbook because then I perused it. I don't have it yet. Christmas is getting it, but I looked at it at the bookstore in Toronto and it's kind of complicated.
There's a grilled cheese in there. Everything's complicated. Write a book about playing the old guitar. It's complicated, but it's like, is it? I don't know. A couple chords. There's what, 3? There's only 3 chords.
So do you feel soup salad sandwich is essentially 3 chords and the truth?
That's all we have. The Holy Trinity. It's the pyramid of love and lust and desire is all there. And you can slurp it, you can bite it, you can mix it up, toss it. And it's just, that's what people eat. Is anybody really going to make a bouillabaisse at home? Shut up. Not really. Just roast some tomatoes,
That's right.
What is going on with you, you little songbird?
Yeah, I'm back at it. Yeah, out there, just released a record and kind of staying busy. I was just over in Europe for a bit and I'll be back in Europe in the spring and going to the UK in the February, in the Feb. And
amazing. Where are you in May? Are you happen to be in like Copenhagen in May? I'm going to be out there in like end of May, I think.
Okay. What do you do in Copenhagen?
Relax,
chill,
eat little shrimps, a lot of little shrimps on a little piece of bread.
Yeah. Because I feel like you have Copenhagen connection. Do you have something that takes you there?
Yeah, I love Copenhagen. I'm there like once a year, maybe. I have very good friends there and I love going there. I love the city. I'm doing like a book thing out there, I think, in late May. And then I'm going to do some like UK shit and maybe do Ireland and Scotland and Scandinavia. And then I'm going to just kind of like add up some stuff around there to make it worth a while to go over there.
I mean, I was just in Scandinavia I was in like Norway and Sweden and I hadn't been there in a minute and it's so wonderful. It's
beautiful.
So lovely. It's really special.
I feel they love you over there. I feel the music transcends over to the Scandos.
I was surprised. I was like, don't they know who I am? Like no one comes to the show. Like I'm still getting over a long history of like putting out music. What's feeling like I've put out a lot of music and the one thing I've never really had is like people at shows. Yeah. So that's changing. But now if somebody's like, oh, you have to come play at this, museum in Sweden. I'm like, are you sure?
Are you sure?
And then I'm getting there and I'm still carrying this feeling of like, being in San Francisco and nobody shows up except one person does show up. That's like carrying an herb bunch. And it's like, I do herbs from the garden. And I'm like, okay, this makes it all worth it. Or, somebody blowing in the door in Manchester after meeting, like, there'll be no one here. But then 2 people come and I'm like, okay, that's changing a bit. But like, in even, for example, Stockholm, there were people there. And I was like,
there's people.
Hey, there's people.
I love that. See, that's the thing. The music you play, it makes people feel so good. And it's funny how there's so many losers out there that just don't know yet. They don't know.
They really don't.
You're one of the goats, you can sing and play like nobody. And it's really, really amazing. I was listening to your album the other day and it's really just so beautiful because it's just like, knowing you for as long as I have and seeing your early shows and just watching you grow as an artist, it's really just so beautiful. And it's so nostalgic. Like it is like a thing. Listening to you makes me feel very different probably than a lot of people, but it makes me feel like a home. And it makes me feel like when I listen to you, it makes me feel like everything goes away. It is like having a friend when I'm like lonely or something, like I'll put your music on and it really makes me feel good. And it is a thing that I do more often than not because I travel around a lot and I am alone a lot, even though I'm surrounded by all of these people. But I spend a lot of time by myself in hotels. And I was listening to like Deloro the other day and I try not to because it makes me so sentimental and it fills me with like love and anxiety at the same time of the times that we've had and the lives that we've lived. But there is something that's like, so like Angels of Death. That like I'll put that on and it makes me feel crazy. It makes me feel so many emotions and it is I don't know. There's something about you, that I care deeply for you, Castle,
Oh, well, Matty, that's so sweet. Thank you for that beautiful download. And I feel the same way about you. And what's interesting is what you said about how complicated it feels to kind of watch the people we're becoming, because there has been sort of eras. Like I was just thinking about how, like, there's this one record I wrote, Pink City, with a song on it called Broken Vase. And there's this line in the song Broken Vase. And nothing's ever like, songs aren't ever really usually always about this one thing.
Yeah.
There's always a couple of details in it that might come from a lot of different scenarios. But there's this one line: I met you wearing a hospital grin. We'll never be the same. And I still remember coming to St. Joe's when you were in the hospital and Sonny was still a baby, and I was coming to visit my friend who had had a heart attack.
Yeah.
And when I think about like that's where that was you, and where you've come through, and that actually, that's also part of your becoming, your story of the things you've transcended and where you are now, and that you kind of bring this wisdom with you. It's just, it's like kind of messed up. It's like it's like knowing a life that's been lived and watching people connect to it, and also having been around for these things. And it's very visceral. It is a very visceral experience to participate in each other's, as artists, in each other's, and with other artists that we know that have come up and through at the same time. Like, it's visceral. It's almost like you can't even kind of make sense of it.
No, it makes you feel kind of crazy. Like, it is those things where I'm like coming back to Toronto and going, now that I'm like, I'm kind of not anywhere longer than a couple days, you know, and I'm in this constant state of movement. And coming back to Toronto, it is like one of those things that it really makes me feel wild. It's like going even to Sam James on Brock and like sitting outside and like looking up at the apartment at One Brock that had so many memories and so many lives, even in that apartment building. I lived there from like 2003 to like 2000, like for so long, and so many things, and having like that place was such an amazing apartment building filled with so many amazing people for years. And nostalgia is like good. And then it's like this double-edged sword too, where it makes me feel like I've done what I've done, and I've done things or whatever. But I go back to those places and I'm just like, man, this is truly like where I come from. And this is my home and all these things. I've become very like melancholy over the years, you know, and like very just so relaxed, but not, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Like, it is one of those things where we've known each other for decades. And it is those things where it's just like thinking about La Palette days and thinking about how truly like free we were then, and how we could move around the way that we could move around. But like working in those restaurants around so many different types of people really opened me up to just like this open-mindedness and this thing where I'm like, oh, I don't have to only hang out with people that only listen to the types of music I listen to.
Yeah.
You know, like it was one of those things where restaurants are these things that bring so many different people together, and like going to see snake shows and going to see the cons and going to see like you play and going to see like all these things is like music that I never even cared about. It is this folk and rock stuff where I'm like, I only listen to like punk and hardcore and you know, or like metal and stuff like that. And it was just these restaurants, these places and spaces really bring in so many different types of people that make that synergy electric and make those places what they are. And I think it really, like thinking back on those days and just like drivers sitting out on the patio, just like rolling smokes and like sitting there. And I was always so fascinated by Driver, where I was just like, this person's so wild.
Yeah. You should, and then you pop one of his records on and you're like, yes.
Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, being in a restaurant years back, it's such a cool experience to have. You can't not recommend it in terms of like being in humanity, or like having a tiny little glimpse of what a larger humanity is. It's making a little restaurant float for the evening, or sing, or thrive, and all of the things, and the way all those energies come together, and the way people meet. But that's interesting that you say you're becoming melancholy, because I mean, I'm a melancholy cat. And I mean, food is, there's something sort of melancholic about it, or it's like you do it when you're young and it seems like you're doing all these other things, but really you're just trying to get people into a feeling really quickly, and people can taste something and they can remember 50 years ago. Or same with songs, like they're always at ceremonies or they're always part of celebrations, and even just the starkest and most sad celebrations. And you put on a song and suddenly you're 20 years back, and you can unlock a feeling just real quickly and sort of faster and more laser sharp than so many other things can. A smell can, a taste, a song. And it's funny to have those. I think we have those sorts of seeds when we're younger, but they really start to develop when you get older. And there's like a melancholy, or you're kind of constantly turning over a little bit of like a good grief, or, because it's resonant. You end up knowing what kind of you're holding, like a lot of like love for life with you when you're doing those sorts of life work, art, music, the things it is that we end up paying attention to.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like that's the thing, is like the feelings, being able to stay in those feelings and remember those moments. That's like it is like those things, thinking about it. And I don't know. I don't like to get stuck on it too much, because then it like,
me neither.
But it is those, when they do happen and you put on music and you do feel those feelings and you can put on an album that brings you back to a spot. It's like, it is truly an amazing thing. I wanted to ask you about farming a little bit and talk about doing some beautiful labor. Can you talk about working on a farm and speak to that?
Yeah, I was gardening in Toronto on the gardening crew that a lot of us came up on. But then during the pandemic, like March 2020, I had, lots of things booked, and I was like looking into like a busy year. I was touring a lot. That was Angels of Death. I was touring. When that got canceled, I noticed my friend whose CSA I was a part of, she was posting that she was hiring. And I immediately kind of knew I had to stay busy in some way, because almost to reference what we were just talking about, like left to my own solitude in a long, undirected way can be, something I need to be careful of. So Ellen Lang at Orchard Hill Farm, she hired me on as a farm laborer for 3 days a week. And it ended up completely blowing my mind. Good work for my body. Kept me, obviously, it's so obvious, but outside in the dirt, working, you have to tend to the vegetables or the flowers or the plants, whatever it is. And great conversation, really kind of working through that time and developing a really profound respect for the growth season, the growing cycle. Just felt real good. It just felt really good. So I did it again the next year. And plus eating the food is so weird. I didn't know, but like tending to the food, growing the food that you're eating is, it's like, deeply related. It's like getting a hug from your own kid, it's like, that's a special kind of hug. I was really working hard to not succumb to profound fear that everything was gone, like everything I was working on, everything that I had been doing. Did I make all these mistakes? Was this, will it ever come? Well, what will it look like when it comes back? So, really moving the body through that potentially anxious time was really key.
Yeah.
And then it also fed into the work itself, like the record we just released, Camelot, is a record written by somebody who was farming at the time.
It is like that thing, like during like when we started like Blue Goose, it was that thing.
What year was Blue Goose? 2020?
We were working on a business plan before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit. Then we were like, I was like, well, I don't know how long this is going to happen. So I was just like, I can't invest in something that I don't know may exist. And I was like very scared about a lot of things. Sure. And then it got to the point where it's like, if we don't do this, then why would we do this?
Right.
So like during the pandemic, it was just like, we got down to a point where, I was like, if I don't take the last of my money, because I couldn't work for a year. And then it was just like, I was just like, we need to be able to feed each other. We need to be able to grow. We need to be able to do something. And that's what sparked Blue Goose, where we were just like, no, we need to like double down. We need to grow vegetables. We need to like dig. We need to plant seeds. It was like one of those things where everyone's so scared to be self-sufficient. Everyone's so scared to like do the thing it's that easy. You can plant seeds and grow food and feed yourself and feed the people around you and do this thing. And it was a now or never thing. It started off as fear. And then it turned into like this beautiful thing, like where like we call it the Little Goose, but the Little Goose plot was like 3,500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And working on that during the pandemic was like, it changed my mentality. It changed my relationships with even like, I've been a chef for a long time and working with food and doing, I've done lots of gardening tours and going and seeing these farms and doing these things. But to do it and to have it on your own property, it was like this beautiful thing that never I would have thought I could. It's like you never know what it feels like to have a child. You never know what it feels like to have a true love. You never know what it feels like to have these things. And then I was just like, I'm getting this like spiritual feeling and feeling this thing of like being able to like grab a turnip and take a bite and it almost drowns you because it's so juicy.
And it's colorful and it's whole and it's good. And you're like, well, it's lineage too. Like, that you're like linked back with thousands of years of somebody pulling out a turnip and being satisfied by that bite.
It is so incredible. And just being around there and having the kids be able to be a part of it. I don't know. It's just like gardening is one of those things where I feel, people should really do it. People should. It's like one of those things where I was just like, if everyone just had like the thing that was funny was like Keenan, he was helping me with Homestyle Cookery, the cookbook, and he was making a joke. He was just like, anybody with like this much yard, it should be like illegal for you not to grow vegetables. Like you need to grow vegetables. Like you
work
have
your body, work your land.
Yeah. And it was like that thing where he kind of called me on bullshit for just having a big yard. And then I was just like, okay, well then do it,
Right.
and then like let's figure this out. But it is I don't know. It is like these beautiful things that like we can make things pretty small and pretty simple and choose the right way and be able to do other things like grow vegetables and then be able to fly around the world and play shows and like do those things.
You can do both. You can be a person that's like an entrepreneur and doing a million things and own a farm.
Yeah. You can do a lot of things. Life isn't a straight line. And it is that thing that the downs and the ups and the all arounds and the go back a couple steps and to go forward. And like all those things are so amazing. Like the trip is worth everything, the failures and all that stuff and like figuring things out. That's what I just like figuring things out constantly and trying to find what is the path. And like, maybe we got to dig a bit.
I mean, that's beautiful. And it's interesting what you said about being scared. We get so scared of sort of self-sustainability or doing it ourselves. I feel like that's something I've kind of been interested over the past few years, which is like, taking that thing on that you have to put the energy into to get the energy back out of, and like kind of really investing in that, not as a shortcut, whether it's like, for the pandemic, for me, it was like about cooking food really for the first time all the time, like not really having a break, being like, okay, breakfast and
dishes.
And
dishes.
I was like, I'm a dishwasher, I'm a farmer, I'm a singer, I'm a doula, I'm a dishwasher though, first and foremost. And then also just in my emotional hygiene, which was like farming my emotional hygiene, like, what am I doing? What did I bring to that crazy scenario? Who am I? Like that sort of radical or that like self-responsibility too and things, which I felt like is also just like when you have time and you're also doing the work of farming, you reflect back on yourself in ways. You have the time to kind of reflect on yourself. I think that's like a larger, broader network of sort of philosophy that's really interesting to me just right now, that of course its seeds are in farming or food or in growing and nourishing, and also the responsibility it takes to grow even relationships, like you were saying with love, even the relationships or the family or the things around you, and, tend to them and care for them.
There's so many uncompromising forces around you that like, how do you try to stay in the middle, not go too far either side, I also wanted to talk about the power of the doula, the power of the birth, and it was so funny. Like when Trish was pregnant and we're figuring all this stuff out, and I'm moving around a bunch, and we're like trying to figure out all that stuff, like if she's going to do a home birth or a thing or whatever. And she was very adamant about doing a home birth and midwifery and whiffery and all that stuff and the doulas and the thingies and the life and the stuff. And I was just like, yeah, because I'm just like a yeah guy. I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like whatever you want to do, like I'm down. Like let's get it. And I like didn't understand things. And then like I remember coming down to the time where I was just like, yeah, so like who's all gonna be? There's like a couple midwives, there's a couple things, like, and she's like, no, it's gonna be like you, our doula, which is you, our Jennifer Castle, you know, our incredible Jennifer Castle. And it was an amazing thing where I was just like, so it's just us. It's just us. It's just us and Castle and a midwife. And I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, down. And the thing that was amazing was we went to a birthing class with a doula that, you know, she had like 900 births or something. She was like Yoda doula. Yeah. And the thing that really clicked, and you're in this room with all these people, a lot of them, you know, first time, you know, it's first time around the all sun here on this one. And the coolest thing that clicked for me was the doula. She said, this is the most natural thing you can do is give birth. And your body is 100% designed to give birth.
Yeah. And
this is not a surgery unless there is a breach and all that, the things and stuff like that. But she's like, this is why we are here. It is not a surgery. It is not a thing until it needs to be. And it was such an amazing thing to see this woman have this confidence. And I was just like, oh yeah, this isn't a thing. Like society has been telling us, and that it's always, if you see it on television or if you see it in movies, it's always this like thing that looks like an accident
or an emergency.
Emergency
was a crisis. The crisis.
Yeah. And it was just like this amazing experience. And then having you be a part of our son MacArthur's birth and being around for Rizzo, it was just like this amazing thing to have somebody that I love so much be a part of that and help us get through that. Was like so beautiful.
And I remember you recently, and I'm not sure when it was, but sometime I'd say in the past year, where I saw a clip of you were talking to somebody, I can't remember, but you said something to the effect of you could birth your own kids. Yeah. And I loved that. That was like proud doula moment, of which I don't have, but I was like, yes, if the first time it's like you kind of like plant that like idea and somebody's had that, it's normal. The actual story of humans isn't birth going wrong. It's birth going right. You know, it's birth being natural is our story. Then so here we are. Naturalizing it is an amazing conversation and is an incredible worldwide thing we have in common. And then if you can, oftentimes with people that are just beginning to have children, yeah, it's sort of, sometimes it can be seen as like, wow, okay, there's not going to be many people on. Okay, so we're just going to know how to do this. And then, you know, 3 times in, you could have the confidence to be like, yeah, the baby's coming, I'd be able to do it. Because true that. And that is the world. And that is history. And history was about most often a woman having birth with usually her partner there, the father there. And that's the most common partnership of, and then there's midwives and then there's doulas. But usually it's often just within the family historically.
The thing about the way from that first birthing class to, you know, Trish, you know, having 3 very successful home births is that confidence of, I'm like, yo, if I was on a plane, I'm like, or on a bus, or like if I was around somebody and something happened, I was just like, I'd be so down to like, just be like, yeah. And it's like this breathing thing and this calming thing. Right. And it was like this thing where I'm like, by the 3rd one, we were just like in the zone. And Trisha's like, yeah, like Trisha is just like primal. I say, like, you know, she just goes into the zone of like, she's not a screamer. She's not a yeller. She's not a, she's this person that like really breathes into it. And like, I'm like, yeah, all we need, like when I talk about it, I'm like, all we needed was like a baking tray wrapped in a towel for her lower back. And like, that was kind of it. And she would like kind of flip flop on the yoga ball and do a couple movements and do some stuff.
You do it enough times, or you're present enough times. If you're present enough births, what you see is a very simple toolbox it's like watching the arc of a rainbow enough times. Like it starts here and it goes up and it curves and then there's a pot of gold. One of the things birth can give you is an insane confidence as you move throughout the world, that, you know, a parental confidence that like, you got this. And I love that as something that people could be carrying, you know, like I remember after I had my son, every time I'd see a woman pushing a stroller, I'd look at her like, you just gave birth? Like, I didn't know, man. Like, I didn't know that this was like this insanely amazing, like wildly, you know, that it can bring you to such a feeling of like having all this strength, or that's one of the things that can happen. And that's cool. I love to hear that. I want to, I'm, you know, it's online, so I can just say, refer to our podcast forevermore, but I will share that piece of not like wisdom with others, that because I still attend births, and you know, I'm always saying like it can really empower you.
Oh,
you know,
it's the coolest thing. It is, and it's just like that thing that like eternally, the respect, like me and Trish have been together for so long. We've spent more years together than not, and it's just like to have that ultimate love and respect is so wild. It's just like, you're the coolest. Like, you know, like there's nothing about it. There's nothing like, I'm just like forever. Like, I'm just like soulmate shit or whatever, but I'm just like ups and downs and like the wars that we have fought together, like over the years. Once you have that thing and it really clicks and sinks in and there is no more fear, and like, there is that thing of being like, we got this together, and we were able to have that moment and those moments. It's a really beautiful thing to have, you know, it really is a thing to cherish.
I mean, I think it's probably one of the best things to cherish, and it truly makes the world go round. I always even forget, people will be like, oh yeah, you're a doula. And during the pandemic, I mean, babies were still coming. They were coming more, you know, I was going into different scenarios that people are like, you available? And I was like, yeah, like I'm more available than I've ever been. And it took me like in wild birthing scenarios, you know, in hospitals, in quarantined rooms, and even a birth where the midwife didn't make it. And it was just mom, dad, and me and baby. And and transmuting that fear in those moments, like fear that something's going to go wrong, instead of transmuting that fear into this deep faith, that something's going to go right. I love that. It was funny when I was doing the CBC, like for blowing kisses, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so, and I had texted you, I'm like, I think they're going to ask, you know, about our relationship, and I'll just play it cool and just be like, yes, and the song, and yeah, I know Maddie, and I'll just play it cool because whatever, who knows. And then they're like, so I'm doing the interview, they're like, hey, do you know Maddie? And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm super chill. And then they're like, well, we spoke to Maddie, and here's what he had to say. And you're like, she was at the birth, she's this. And I was like, oh, damn, true. There's so many levels of like deep friendship. And also, interestingly, your mother's leather jacket, which I brought for this. Joni's leather jacket that I still wear. And you know, when you gave me this jacket, it was at La Palette. Yeah. And I had just told you I was pregnant. And you put the jacket on me and you said, take my mom's leather jacket. I want you to have it. And it was like and so all of when I was on tour and I was, you know, 9 months pregnant, and I was just being like, oh, fuck, you know, I was 31 and I was like, what's going to become? I felt like this was part of my like magical, mystical armor.
That leather jacket.
Life is an onion. There's many layers.
Life is a highway.
Life is a highway.
You know?
It's cool to go down this memory lane, and it's cool, like when people talk about your success as they do to me, Maddie, like I'm somebody that knows you now, and like you're so beloved, and people really resonate with what you're doing. And you know, the thing I say most often and truly mean is like, I would have called that within the first few hours of meeting him. I'm like, what people are engaging in with you beyond your talent, or what you've refined in yourself, or what you've challenged and learned new in yourself, it's something essential that you engage with upon meeting you. And I hope it's nourishing you back. Like, I feel like it is, because I think people must really just be like, oh my gosh, there's so much positive energy in you. And I know that it's not just black and white. But yeah, you really have a gift that's resonated with people, and you had it the second I met you, and it was just like big hugs and knowing somebody's destined for big things. And now people are like, Matty, and I'm like, I do know Matty.
Yeah, see, the real Matty. It's just
I
like
know.
that's the good stuff, though. It's just like, I don't know. It's funny. Like, I'm just so happy that I'm surrounded by good people, and I have like real friends like you, and so many. Like, I'm really like lucky to have beautiful people in my life that are so creative. I've always been so inspired by my friends, and like my friends are like everything to me. And it's just like, I think just being surrounded by so many artists and musicians and painters and poets and things, like just like so many different, like I think hanging out in the market for as many years as we did, and like being a part of, like, I think Toronto in the early 2000s and mid 2000s was like a really kind of special spot. And I think like there was like a scene there that was like really before community was community, and like this thing that, like, I think hanging out in Kensington Market was like a thing for like a lot of different people doing a lot of different things that all were just kind of just trying to figure it out and be a part of something. I don't know. I really look back, like, at it, like just seeing you and like having this conversation just is making me feel very like nostalgic. But it is it's an incredible thing, because it is it's funny because I'm always just like even like my mom's jacket, like I'm just like, I'm just so proud of like my parents, and like I'm always just like, yeah, I came from like, I think just good folks. And it's just like, my mom's a shit shoveler, and, she worked a lot of different jobs to put food on the table, and coming from where we came from. And like my dad always like working hard and like doing these things. And like, it is one of those things that it is, it really is amazing to be able to do all the things that I want to do, and provide for my family the way that I can now. And it is, to just know that we're all coming from a place trying to figure it out. And like, we're still there trying to figure it out at all times. Like it never stops. Like, I still feel the same way as when I was 22, 23, trying to like, what is this? And what are we doing here? And like, it is a never ending kind of same place, different time, Yeah.
That's the sort of interesting thing about the creative life, is you're always going, okay, what's next? And it's not this insatiable, it's not an insatiable need for like, growth or success or blah, blah, blah. That can be part of it, but it truly is the creative.
How do we do it?
Force of being like, what do we do? And how do we do this? Or how do I write this? Or how do I conceive of this? It needs that forward motion. There's obviously moments that are like more still and, incubating, but it's the creative life, and the family, and bringing it back into your nourishing yourself and your people as you go. And it's crazy that we're living a life. I mean, I have a friend that always just says, I'm just happy to be alive, like, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes down to that, really. And then with the people that you came up with, like, sometimes when I'm talking to Davida, I'll say the same thing.
It's crazy.
I just go to her house and I'm like just a slob on her couch playing with her kids. And she's like taking business calls and doing all of these things. And we never talk business. We used to only ever talk. We used to always walk around and just be like, oh, we're going to be so big one day. We're going to be. And now when David and I get together, we never talk. We just tickle kids and make snacks. And, it's kind of like life, it's just life. It's cool.
Yeah, but it is because we're doing what we're doing. It is like that thing that like, we don't have to talk about it because we're doing it. I think you get to that point where you don't have to talk about it because you're doing it. If you're talking about it, you're not really doing it. And Davida is like incredible. Like it is like like Night Gallery is such a heater, and it's just like so respected, and it's like amazing. Like where I'm so proud. Like knowing about Night Gallery from like my friends in LA, like these people that have this money to buy beautiful art and support artists and stuff. And they're like, dude, like I was at like Night Gallery, and I'm just like, dude, I just remember being like, yeah, Davita, huh? And they're like, oh yeah. And like, they know Davita as Davita. And I'm just like, it's so amazing to just have that. And it feels like you have that superpower of being like knowing people for as long as we have and seeing them kind of glow up and do these things is like, it is like a superpower being like, even the same way, like I feel that way about you and like, just being like, oh yeah, like this low key person that like is like the greatest singer songwriter of all time is just like my homie. And I like love her like a sister. And I'm just like, oh yeah, like, yeah, Jennifer Castle. Yeah. I don't know. Ever heard a voice before, you know? And it's just like, it is so tight. Like I do picture you just like riding your bike around the market with like 3 scarves on and a leather jacket and like with your riding in the snow with your guitar gonna have to go play some friggin' venue. You know, it's an amazing thing to be able to do it's an amazing thing to be able to do what you want to do. It is like that is the thing to kind of break free and to do what you want to do. And the privilege in that is the ultimate gratitude. It is to be able to do what you truly want to do and live that life.
Yeah. Huge honor, huge responsibility, huge gift, big gratitude for that. And it is what it is. Like it speaks for itself and it's not over. It's really just beginning in many ways. And like
every day is day one, you know?
Every day. So here we are. And I'll take that opportunity to say thank you for your role in sending the first single of my record off in such a wildly beautiful way. I thank you. That was cool. And just all my love and all my success and best wishes for you coming up. Like I know we haven't even touched on, so much, but
it doesn't matter.
On everything. Yeah. Congratulations on all the stuff that you get trophies for and you get medals for, and congratulations on the stuff that are just like the smells of your own cooking in your own kitchen at home, and give my love to your family. I can't wait to see them soon. Love you, Matty.
I love you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse Podcast, and thanks to Matty Matheson and Jennifer Castle for chatting. If you liked what you heard, please follow Talkhouse on your favorite podcasting platform, and check out all the good stuff at talkhouse.com. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme is composed and performed by The Range. See you next time.